It's a star-studded league, they say, and tonight we get to see two of the biggest stars in the game face off as the Milwaukee Bucks head to Houston to play the Rockets. Giannis Antetokounmpo and James Harden in another interesting arrival outfit, as usual. He is on a roll lately. We'll get to all that
those capris
and more. I'm not really sure what category those fall in.
Hey, when you ball like that, you can wear whatever you want.
Yes, he can wear knickers,
Come out there bucket
onesie,
naked. I don't even
whatever
think
he
anybody
wants.
Oh, I didn't see all the. Okay.
Oh, we got some
I
details on the
didn't see
shoulder.
that. Okay.
We could do a whole show on that, right? Hey, everybody, welcome into Game Time Live. I'm Allie LaForce with Greg Anthony and Sekou Smith. We got a show tonight, you guys. We have the reigning MVP against the MVP favorite. We have the Greek Freak against the Beard. Call it whatever you want to call it, but we're going to see some serious star power play tonight. Looking forward to you. Hype?
I am. I'm excited.
Always.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. Before we dive into the matchup, let's hear from Coach Budenholzer and that daunting task of defending James Harden.
You know, Harden takes so many just himself, and it's easy to say limit them. It's much harder to do. So, you know, hopefully our guys are aware and, you know, see if we can stay connected to him, take away his threes in transition, any off-the-ball situations, try and limit those. And when he has the ball, you know, see what we can do to maybe, you know, get him off the three-point line.
So it seems like ages ago, but Houston lost to Dallas on December 8th, and since then they've won 12 of their last 14 games, and over that stretch posting a blazing 117.2 offensive rating. It's second to only the Spurs in that specific stretch, and the Bucks playing some of their best basketball in that same stretch. Certainly Harden has been the heart and soul behind the Houston stretch, and he is just putting up numbers that are historic right now, guys, if he can keep it up.
Yeah, I didn't think that the way he started the season obviously would be the way he finished at GA. But Allie, when you look at just the way he flipped the switch, you know, and this is something that we tell these guys year after year, you're not supposed to be able to do. You don't just flip a switch and start playing like this. James Harden apparently does not want to listen. I mean, this is, I'm not sure we've seen a guy, GA, in quite some time who can score and deliver the ball the way James Harden has been doing.
And that's when you hear the comments about best offensive player that people have seen. Most people equate offense with the ability just to score. But he's also, as a facilitator, off the charts. And that's what puts him in that realm. You know, yeah, Michael Jordan, Kobe, those guys, in terms of their ability to just purely put it in the basket, that was a unique and unworldly skill. But he puts it in the basket at the same rate, but he's also that guy that facilitates and creates for everybody else. I mean, his usage rate is off the charts. That's a lot of responsibility. And then his ability to get to the line. I mean, it is really unparalleled in terms of what we've seen in this stretch that he's in the midst of right now. It's a marvel to watch, and he's going to go up against another marvel tonight in Giannis.
You said a lot of things I want to get to. Houston is 5th in the league in the free throw percentage attempt rate per game. You know, that's largely due to Harden, the way he attacks the glass, and people are confused on how to defend him. You have to be physical, and it can't just be one guy. It has to be a lot of guys. So how do you go about defending Harden if you're Milwaukee?
Well, you just heard what Mike Budenholzer said, and as much as I love him as a coach, I think it's the wrong trade. Transition threes are not what you want to focus on limiting, because that's, in transition, you're going to be cross-matched. That's hard to limit. What you got to focus on, in my estimation, especially with this roster for the Rockets, is I got to get the ball out of his hands early. I'm not going to allow him to consistently play one-on-one. If he's proven one thing, he's proven that he can score consistently, and when you try to guard him with whomever, you've got to double him. You got to jump him early in the pick and roll, make him give it up, and make others make plays. And I think with the shot clock, you have an opportunity to do that. Now, the problem with trying to do it is that's not something you can practice. You know, we can talk about it, and that's what makes the NBA so tough, Sekou. We talk about what we want to do. But when we played last night or we got 3 and 5 days, we can't drill things in the regular season. So it's hard to then take what the game plan is if it's unique to what you generally do and implement it. So he's going to be a challenge for whomever, even this Bucks team.
Sekou, I want to go back to Monday against Denver when he put up 32 and people said, wow, it was a slow night for him because he had 10 straight games where he scored at least 35, right? But they were double teaming him every second. And we're looking at the season and we're understanding that we're not even at the halfway point. And so just the physical wear and tear on him and this usage rate that you mentioned, Greg, can he withstand this and how will he do that?
Yeah, look, I think the best example of how James Harden can take a team apart is watching the replay of that game against Golden State last week. They tried every single guy on the floor on him in about a 4-minute stretch at one point. Nobody could stay in front of him. Kevin Durant,
Right.
smaller defender Steph, Klay
So
Thompson,
explosive.
an unbelievable, versatile defender. Draymond, a defensive player of the year and a specialist who's about his size. The big men who dared to get out in front of him, of course, risked being embarrassed, dropped off and shot over or taken to the basket and just made fool of. I think the smart play, as GA mentioned, is denial. The first thing you try and do is just do enough work before he gets his hands on the ball to keep him from being as effective as he is.
Exactly. Wear him
But
down.
that's impossible when you
One
really
bump
think
at a
about it.
time,
Yeah,
right? Yep.
because you're not going to have enough continuous action to keep that defender glued to him the way you need to. There's going to be so many stops in the action, so many threes, long threes by you and Houston, that he's going to have opportunities to get that ball, get in transition, or get somebody on skates
Right.
and take advantage of you. It's almost impossible, and this is what I think Daryl Morey was getting at. It's almost impossible to figure out a consistent way of guarding James Harden in today's game because of the freedom of movement that players are allowed and the fact that you can't match up with him enough times during slow periods to make it work.
Well, we've talked about how it hasn't been a one-man show. It's been everyone during Houston's streak, and same for the Bucks. It's been everyone chipping in. It will have to be everyone chipping in to stop James Harden or to limit him because I don't think he can be stopped. But as we shift to Milwaukee, the Greek freak, Giannis, on pace to join Oscar Robertson to become the second player in NBA history to average at least 26 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. How blown away have you both been by the way he's playing basketball right now, Greg?
I think that's a great way to phrase it. I am blown away because when you think of the maturation of him, he was thought to be a project when he first came in. Obviously he had a physical skill set that you thought if he could get to that point, but oftentimes guys never get there. But Giannis has. I mean, we talk so much about the matchup nightmare that is James Harden. He's equally as much of a nightmare as well because, he can be a disruptor defensively. He can be a game changer on that end. But then his ability to not just score it, but to create for his teammates much in a similar fashion that we've seen with James Harden. The other thing that's great, though, too, give Mike Budenholzer a tremendous amount of credit because he's really created an environment and a system offensively that has taken this Bucks team to new heights. They are a much more efficient team offensively. They shoot the three at a much better clip than they had done in the years past, and I think a lot of that's directly attributed to the changes he's been able to implement there, and that's why this team right now looking like a legit contender.
And he did
in
it
that
so
Eastern
quickly.
Conference. He's done it before. He did it in Atlanta. Remember that first year? I think they won 60 games that year.
Well, it wasn't his first year,
year,
but it was
second.
after he got
after
a full
he-
complement of
yeah.
guys. And I think what it is, GA, is when you get an opportunity to do an autopsy on a team the way Mike Budenholzer does, applying some of the principles he's used forever, going back to his days as an assistant in San Antonio, when you figure out how to push certain guys to play in just a subtly different way. Maybe if it's Lopez and you convince him that taking threes the way he did in Brooklyn is now, we want you to take him in a different fashion. We want you to take him in different spots on the floor. He's not asking Giannis to play outside of his wheelhouse, to me, which that's the most beautiful part about what they've done in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean,
Giannis hasn't had to shift his game or change his game.
No.
But the guys around him have catered what they do to Giannis.
And that's generally what you want to do. When you come in and you got a great player like Giannis, you don't worry about his ability. It's more about how can I get the other guys to raise their level? What can we devise to improve them? Very similar to what Steve Kerr did with Golden State when he first got there. It wasn't that he made wholesale changes. He just tweaked it enough to where it raised the level of everybody's game and ultimately created that dynasty.